Financial support for the production of Issues in Education is provided by the Florida State University License Plate. Your FSU license plate supports scholarships for students who enrich and contribute to our communities. Special programs, gift certificates, and rebates for first-time buyers online at fsu.edu/mytag.
Coming up today on Issues in Education, keeping your options open. What do you do when you don't know what you want to major in when you head off to college? Welcome to Issues in Education. I'm Suzanne Smith, alongside my co-host, Florida State University President, Dr. Eric Barron. Many students who start college each fall have a plan about what their major is going to be and what they're going to do when they graduate. But many other students don't have an answer to either question. They're called exploratory students. And from the moment they step on campus, the countdown begins for them to make a decision. FSU Advising First program has a special center dedicated to helping exploratory students in their search. To tell us more about this program and how it can help, we're joined by Dr. Kathleen Smith, Associate Director for Advising First. Also here today is Jamal Grimes. He started off at FSU in a major, but changed it to become an exploratory student. Today, he's a social work major and an orientation leader. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. So, I've been to a lot of universities, and some will say undeclared or undecided, or sometimes they say, no, you must pick a major. Where does exploratory come from?
Okay, exploratory actually, I'll give you a little bit of history. Florida State always had the undecided major. And for the most part, students would come in, they would have 2 years to take different classes and explore, and then try different things. And then eventually, usually the deadline was about 60 credit hours. When they were ready to be juniors, they would change into a departmental major. And that was fine, although there were some problems with that. And when we really decided to take a look at this and make changes, it was when we initiated the mapping program at FSU. And so approximately 2004, we moved to this mapping program where students were now held accountable to their academic majors. And so every semester they have specific courses they need to complete in order to move on in their major. And then the goal is that they will follow this map and then graduate in 4 years. And so the question was, how do we support the students who don't have a specific major when they come to the university? How can they commit to a map? So we knew we had to reinvent undecided, and so we changed it because undecided had always been kind of flat, and we wanted to make it more proactive. And so we changed the name to exploratory. We actually shortened the timeline so that instead of 2 years, we tried to help them with the decision so they could make the decision within 1 year. And we offered them a very structured program, and then also a mentoring relationship with their academic advisor to oversee the process. And that's how we work exploratory at FSU.
So it's not just something that's, oh yeah, I'm undecided or I'm undeclared. I'm exploratory, and this is a path that they are taking.
This is a path that they're taking. This is a commitment they're making.
Jamal, when you started at FSU, you actually thought you knew what you were going to be doing.
Exactly.
How did that go about changing, and how did you find the Advising First program?
Well, honestly, I just wasn't happy in what I was doing. I came in and I really didn't know, raised by grandparents that neither of them went to college, and I figured if I don't declare a major upon applying to Florida State, there's no way I'm going to get in. So I was that typical student going on with that stigma of that you have to have a major if you're going to be competitive. Right. And just in my first year, I just really was unhappy. When I finally went into exploratory advising, Mr. Crozier, the advisor over there, he was like, "Are you okay? You look sick." I was frail, I looked tired, and I really wasn't involved in campus because all I did was study. I wasn't involved in the things that I wanted to do. And so I really realized at that time that I needed to make a change.
And then, was this easy to explain to your folks? You start with, I'm going to college to do this, and now I'm exploratory?
Well, honestly, just because they hadn't been to college, they didn't know what exploratory was. Like, is that a major? Like, same thing that most people who do go to a university don't really understand what exploratory was. And I had to explain to them, like, this doesn't mean that I'm on my way out of the university, that I haven't made a mistake, but it's going to put me on the path to find exactly what I want to do.
So let's talk about should students be worried if they don't have a major when they get to school?
I don't think students should be worried, no, especially if they choose the exploratory option. But I think what worries me, or what worries parents, or what I would have parents worry, is if the student was not committed to the process. And I think that sometimes students will put it on the back burner and say, well, I'll eventually get there. But I think that it has to be an intentional process, and they have to make the effort, because what we find is that when the students, whatever they put into it is what they get out of it. So we provide all the tools and all the resources to be successful, and then it's really up to them to engage in that whole process. And I mean, amazing results start to happen when they do that.
Now, this is really kind of interesting, because this is a very deliberate path. And you can imagine how some people would say exploratory, you're sort of wandering around the landscape,
Right.
sampling this and that. So how does Advising First actually help you zero in on what it is you want to study?
Well, honestly, I must say, like, they were very focused on, like, where had Jamal Grimes come from, and they do that with all their students, and what was driving me to stay at Florida State, and where do I want to see myself after this. So they were very personable with me. They wanted to know what was driving me, and so that was the first thing that hit home. But most importantly, all Advising First students, they come in, they take an assessment for your major and your occupation, and so they kind of match up your interests and, like, what do you want to get involved with and what matches up with the major. And so everyone is required to take that assessment coming into exploratory advising.
With the Advising First at the Center for Exploratory Students, because the Advising First is the overall title for advising students of all. So you came in as in a different major, and they pointed you towards the center.
Right.
Okay, so you go into the center.
Right.
Well, he's talked about these assessment programs. What are the steps to find your major and your career?
Okay, so what I want to say is that the program is based on theory and based on research in the field, and then based on best practices. So when we started this program in 2004, we looked to our colleagues at other universities to identify what were the best programs and what were they doing with their students. So we got some ideas, and then we knew that we looked to the true theorist for this. Her name is Virginia Gordon, and she talks about students cannot make an informed decision until they go through 3 specific phases. So the first phase has to start with self, and that in order to make a good decision, you have to think about your values, you have to think about your interests and your passions, and you have to think about your strengths. And when all 3 of those line up, then that's the information you need to start moving into possible options. So the first phase is self-exploration, and that's where we do a lot of work with our students. So for Jamal, he talked about an assessment. We developed a really great packet with the Career Center, where students, before they even meet with their academic advisor, they spend time reflecting, and they identify their values, their interests, their strengths. We give them a lot of different exercises to get at that, and they answer a lot of compelling questions about their life and their goals, and not just what they want to do, but who they want to be. That's really the question we're trying to ask. And then once they get that, the advisors are all trained to look at that information, and then we start pulling themes. And then the themes, so we may have, the themes can be in zones, so it can be that the student wants to be be in the helping profession, or a STEM student, or it may be technology. I mean, they're just some basic zones or themes. And then we start to hone in on those, and then we help them get very specific with the majors that relate, because FSU has over 130 majors. So for a student to come into the university and to be even aware of all those options and to understand how they might work, I think that's probably the biggest role that the advisor plays, is all that knowledge, and then being able to hone in on what the student wants to accomplish and where they want to go, and then what major will give them the skills and the abilities and the knowledge to be successful in whatever the student wants to pursue. So that's how the process works. And then we know that major decision and career decision go hand in hand. They're not separate, they're integrated. So then what we do is we have them do a lot of work, but become very knowledgeable about what the career options are for after college, and to link all of that. And so those are the 3 phases: self, major, and career. But then within those phases are specific action steps. And I know Jamal took some of those action steps. So every time a student meets with their advisor, they have a chance to really process where they are, and then they're assigned specific actions to move themselves even further along in their path. So that the action may be to go meet with a faculty member, or it may be to embark upon an internship or an independent study. But it's another way to hone in and define their focus, and we think that's what ignites that passion and that excitement about learning, and then helps them make those connections to the university and then make the most out of their college experience. So that's how the program works.
So it sounds like quite an intensive effort. So how many students are you doing this for? Is it in the tens, or is it in much bigger number?
It's the largest major for incoming freshmen, so we have approximately 1,200 students start out in Exploratory. Each advisor has a roster of approximately 200 students that they're responsible for. They are a very hard-working group of people. They just pour themselves into the students, providing all that mentoring and the action steps. But the work is so rewarding, because when a student finds their passion and finds their path and they go on to do the things that Jamal has already done, then there's just nothing more rewarding as an educator to see that process play out.
Jamal, for the process for you, what were those action steps that you had to take when you started finding your way through the program?
I think the first part was really finding out what was going to make me happy. Simply because where I was currently, on the major I was currently in, I just wasn't happy. I wasn't happy with the coursework I was doing or not being involved on campus. And so when I figured out what was going to make me happy, then I had to find that balance of, okay, I'll be happy getting up and going to work every day, but now let's match this major with the occupation that will allow me to provide for a family, children and a wife, because that's one of the main things that I worried about as a student that came from a working class family, a first generation student at Florida State. Like, I wanted to be out there, I wanted to help people, I wanted to be in my community, but I also wanted to be comfortable in my life. So those were the things that we kind of tried to match together, and that's what the assessment helped me to do. And then from there, when I kind of narrowed it down of things that I would like to do, I was able to go out into those colleges and talk to those advisors and professors about what they were doing in their colleges.
And was it successful? It found something that you're passionate about?
It's very successful. I'm very passionate. I'm very happy as a social work major now. And I'm on a very great course right now. I'm a senior now, and praise to God that I'll be back here next fall. I'm in our dual program for law and social work, and so I'm very happy now.
So you're going to continue to go in and do a law degree as well, or?
Yes, ma'am. We have a dual program here, and so you have to be accepted into both colleges, and so that's the goal that I have now. And honestly, if I never went to Exploratory, I would never consider those things. Me personally, I'm a very stubborn person, and so it took the biological science advisors talking to me and making me realize that I wasn't happy in what I was doing and point me into the right direction of Exploratory.
How often do you meet with your advisors in the course of this process? Because, as you said, it's a very intense procedure, and it sounds like it's something you're always working on.
Right. I mean, I met Mr. Crozier once a week. After declaring a major, I still met with him. Like, it feels like a family there. They make you feel really comfortable because they get to know you, and that's the most important part of helping you find your major and a future occupation. So they become very familiar with you, and you feel very comfortable there. So even though I've declared a major, I still go over there for advising, and even though I'm not exploratory, they still welcome me with open arms. So it's very important too.
I'm constantly amazed at the extent to which the folks here at Florida State have such a strong and committed relationship with students. I'm really happy to hear this particular story. So this seems to me like there's a lot of universities out there that should be paying attention to what Florida State is doing.
Yes.
Are you recognized on the national scene?
Yes, we won a national award, which was really exciting, in 2011 for an outstanding program award from the National Academic Advising Association. So that was really an honor and very validating. And I think what this speaks to is that what the research in higher education shows is that guiding students, it's about information. Academic advising is about providing the right information, but it's also providing a meaningful relationship. And that's like consistently, the research demonstrates that when students feel they have someone on campus who they can turn to, then that creates the staying power to keep them in school. And so exploratory and advising verse is part of a greater retention initiative to keep our students, not just enroll them, but support them and challenge them so that they thrive and that they graduate and then go on to do great things. And what I love about it is that the whole kind of interpersonal piece is what's such a pivotal part of what the theory tells us and what the evidence tells us. But then, so it creates a lot of meaning, and then it also just validates and continues to just what the research, it just continues to just instill that message. And I think what has been most exciting is we've started to really track the retention rates of our exploratory students, and the program was in kind of it was in a building formative stage, I would say, for the first few years, and then we started getting very serious about holding our students accountable in 2007. And that's when we really started tracking the data. And so between 2007 and now, the retention gap was about 5% with students who came in exploratory, like between 4 and 5%. And now it's almost minimal. It's less than 1%, the difference, the retention gap. So again, it goes back to that retention research, that when you support students in a certain way, in a very meaningful way that is developmental and provides a lot of support, then it impacts retention. And I think that to me as an educator is what's just most interesting and exciting, because as a nation we need to be focusing on graduating our students, and so this kind of attention that we can give them, this is something that universities can get behind and can really invest. And so not only do we do this at Florida State, but Advising First, we've given over 50 presentations at state, regional, national conferences, and we talk about this, and we not only instill this message, but we show other advisors across the country how to do this and share a lot of our ideas and our approaches, and we're very just open about our materials because we want other students to have the same experience Jamal had, where he can get that level of support.
So if I can summarize what you just said, which I thought was quite interesting, if you come in with a major and you know what you're doing, you have a leg up in retention a typical university. And so there's a reason why parents and everybody are pushing students, pick a major. But because of this program, that disappears because of the commitment to taking a path on a map to something that you're passionate about.
Right.
It's quite a statement, quite a story.
Yes. It's really effective. And in Advising First, so not only do we have this exploratory program, but we also have another center that works with sophomores who are starting to get up there and then find that they're experiencing this indecision. So we provide some specialized assistance with that. And then we have a center for success coaching, and we have 15 coaches who work specifically with populations of students who have been identified as more vulnerable to dropping out. And they provide very similar, just strong mentoring, interpersonal relationships to their students. And that has also shrunk the retention rate. So all these different things that the university is doing, and all the resources. I mean, there's so many incredible resources, but sometimes students don't know about them, or don't have the courage to go to a meeting or to get connected. So the advisors help make those connections, but also offer that little, sometimes a little push to go, Did that happen with you, Jamal?
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Yes. Well, for me, like you said, we're on a mapping track. And so when I sat down and I talked to them, I say, these are the classes that you've completed. This is what you'll have to do next semester to stay on track. And the grades that you have, these are the possible med schools that you stay on this track, you'll be able to get into. And so I talked to them about, going exploratory. I was like, well, you have the mapping hole, you have to complete certain milestones on the mapping track. And so you could be out of this major for a semester and decide to come back because of the milestones you completed, and you'll still be on track. And however, for me, when I went exploratory and I really got that personal connection with the advisors, and I really opened me up to things that I was really more passionate about, I decided to stay in exploratory until I found something that was for me instead of going back into the biology major.
I think that's actually a good point. If you go into an exploratory program, is that something that you need to be concerned that it's going to take you longer to graduate?
That's a really good question. And I think this also speaks to the fact that Advising First is a network. So we have 55 advisors and success coaches. Half of them are actually out in academic departments. So because it's almost like we are a family, we all have these relationships with one another too, that we can make those referrals. So if I have a student who I think would be a great biology major, I'm going to recommend they go meet with the advisor in biology. So it's not, I can name that person by name and pick up the phone and call them. So I think that helps a lot. But just to your question, the exploratory, even at orientation, when students come in exploratory, the first thing we have them do is fill out a sheet that identifies any credit they might be coming in with. So we don't want to duplicate any credit. So we have a lot of our students are coming in with AP, IB, so that's wonderful. Then we have them list interest areas. So in those interest areas, the advisors are in the back of their mind are thinking, how can I make sure these students are on map so that they don't get sidetracked from their maps? So if a student lists that they're interested in STEM, then we make sure that they get the right math that's leading to calculus. So that, and if they tell us that they're not going into a STEM and that they want to go into something with liberal arts or communication, and they're very clear about that, then we might make a different math recommendation. So we're always in the back of our mind thinking about how do we keep them on track, and then give them liberal studies courses to help them actually like sample classes to start to test the waters of different subjects.
And a true exploratory opportunity.
Yeah.
Thank you both for being here today.
Thank you.
We've been talking about the Advising First program at FSU. To learn more, go to advisingfirst.fsu.edu. When we come back, Dr. Barron and I will talk one-on-one about more issues in education.
A spirit roams these parts. A spirit of respect, competition, and academic greatness. Some call our spirit myth. Others call it legend. We call it Florida State University.
Welcome back to Issues in Education. I'm Suzanne Smith, talking with Dr. Eric Barron, president of Florida State University. Dr. Barron, we've been talking about exploratory majors and advising first. Why is it important to think of what was traditionally undecided or undeclared as exploratory?
Well, I think there's a lot of factors. It's a different kind of word. It says you're going to find something that's exciting because this is a university that has a lot of opportunity and a lot of breadth. And so that's important, but it's also very deliberate. It's a map. It's a path to explore, to find something that you're passionate about. And Jamal proved that it works, didn't he?
And it also proved that you can change your mind and not actually succeed even better than you thought before.
Just this notion that if you don't know what you're doing, it's going to take you longer. And to say to someone, or you won't stay, and to say to someone, no, it won't necessarily take you longer, and you'll graduate at the same rate as everyone else, that's a pretty powerful statement.
Do you see any other advantages for taking that little extra time to find the right major for you?
Okay, well, sometimes you meet people, and they've put a tremendous amount of energy into achieving an objective, and they realize that's not what they want to spend their lives on. And you really hope that college is a path, wherever direction you take, where you have a sense of what it is that you really want to spend your life doing, especially if you want to go beyond that undergraduate degree. A lot of undergraduate degrees lead to good jobs. But in the case of Jamal, to look at social work and law, if you're going to advance to that degree, then it becomes very important.
You talk a lot with a lot of parents. What do they think when their children are starting college as an exploratory major? Do they have concerns? Do they worry? Or are they just like, okay, yeah, this is the way to go?
You know, I think a lot of parents are realists, and they realize that people do change their minds. I've heard that, about half the freshmen change their mind one way or another. Sometimes they look at a particular major and wonder if that's what's right. Sometimes they have hopes that their child will go in a particular direction. So I do think there can be concerns if it's exploratory, if it's translated in, I don't know what I'm doing and where I'm going, and I hope I'll find out. But instead, when they realize how deliberate this path is and how successful the student, I think parents can relax.
A new school year begins at the end of August. What are you looking forward to this year?
Ever since I really experienced a Florida State convocation, and I see everybody wearing their T-shirts that describe what college they're in, incidentally with a special T-shirt for exploratory students, so an exploratory student can meet with another exploratory student and realize, okay, we both are following this same path. That always gets me excited and gets me going, and you don't realize what a living, breathing organism a university is until at the end of the spring, so many students disappear. And then they come back on the campus and, the vibrancy level just notches up, and it's exciting.
With the convocation ceremony, is the T-shirts your favorite part of the whole thing?
I like a lot of it. The T-shirts are a favorite part because I can actually look out from the stage and see the distribution of colleges that students have chosen.
Because every college gets its own color.
Every college gets its own color. Exploratory is a color, so I'm looking out over the whole audience, and I'm seeing all of the students out there, wearing this color for this college. And so you have a sort of an immediate sense of both the diversity and even some the numbers. And so that part's exciting, but it's also laden with tradition that a successful older student passes on the torch, strength, skill, and character, to a new student. And you have that sense of tradition and passing on to the next generation that's quite exciting.
What advice do you have to them as they, or any students anywhere going off to college for the first time? What should they do to get the most out of their experience?
Okay, so I tell parents privately, in public, out loud, become engaged. Take advantage of what is there. The more engaged you are, the happier you'll be, the more successful you are, the more your peer group will also be engaged. And find out what it takes to be successful. If you make sure that you do well your first semester, you'll keep it up because you'll know exactly what it takes. If you slip in your first semester, then you got to climb. So my advice is get engaged, do well that first semester.
And like Jamal said, he wasn't doing things when he first got there that he wanted to do. Once he started doing that, everything turned around.
He's a different student.
That's our time for now. Thank you very much, President Barron. Please join us again next month for more Issues in Education. You can watch the premiere episode of Issues in Education the first Friday of every month at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. That means you can see the next new episode on Friday, September 6th on WFSU-TV. We hope you'll join us as we discuss the latest developments in higher education happening around the state and across the country. If you have questions that you would like us to address on this program, you can email us at issues@wfsu.org. Again, that's issues@wfsu.org. If you would like to see past episodes from Issues in Education, head to the President's website at president.fsu.edu. I'm Suzanne Smith with the Florida State University President, Dr. Eric Barron, for Issues in Education. We'll see you next time.
Financial support for the production of Issues in Education is provided by the Florida State University License Plate. Your FSU license plate supports scholarships for students who enrich and contribute to our communities. Special programs, gift certificates, and rebates for first-time buyers online at fsu.edu/mytag.